Well, joining me now is columnist for the Israeli newspaper, the Jerusalem Post, and the Palestinian newspaper, Al-Quds, Gershon Baskin. Thanks very much for joining us on the programme. So we've got this court case going on then. We've also got the president meeting with the country's political parties. How on earth can Netanyahu possibly be across both of these things at the same time?
Well, that's one of the big questions that the Israeli public was asked to vote on 4 times in the last 2 years. We have a lacuna in our law which enables the prime minister to continue to serve even if there are criminal indictments against him. The absurdity of the situation is that Netanyahu could not be a minister in his own government because ministers who are indicted have to step down. He can't be a teacher in a public school in Israel because teachers with indictments are not allowed to meet children. He can't be a public rabbi paid for by the state. A whole slew of positions which he can't hold, but he can be prime minister. And this is essentially what's prevented us from being able to create a stable government in Israel.
So a difficult thing for him to juggle both, but do you think he could use that to his advantage?
Well, if he's capable of creating a new government, it is likely that he will once again try to pass laws that will end the court case against him, either by freezing it or of accepting what we call in Israel the French law, which would state that a serving prime minister cannot be brought to trial, or the speculation is that he will try to fill the office of president, which would grant him full immunity as well.
He's denied that he would do that, though, hasn't he?
From the prime ministership. Well, no, the talk in the last few days has been that this is, in fact, something that he is thinking about and perhaps planning, and that would enable him to try and change the system of governance in Israel, just as Vladimir Putin did in Russia when he took over the presidency.
Netanyahu, though, I mean, he says the trial against him is just politically motivated, doesn't he? He says the charges are basically fake news.
That's what he says, but the police took years in investigating him. The attorney general, who was appointed by Netanyahu and worked closely with Netanyahu as the cabinet secretary beforehand, spent more than a year writing the indictment against him, and he was very careful. I don't think that these are fake charges. He may think that he did nothing wrong, but the law is very clear that he did commit fraud and breach of trust and bribery.
And finally, you mentioned those meetings going on as well with the president. I mean, do you think that Netanyahu will be able to form a government?
It seems very unlikely. In fact, we're at a stalemate now that neither the pro-Netanyahu camp or the anti-Netanyahu camp has the ability to get the 61-seat majority in the Knesset. And it seems very likely at this point that we'll be moving to a 5th election. And what's tragic here is that Israel has ceased to deal with the issues that it's facing, not the Palestinian issue, not issues of peace and security, not even the economic issues. The only issue on the electoral agenda is Netanyahu yes or Netanyahu no.
Good to talk to you. Thanks very much for being with us on the programme, Gershon Baskin, joining us there from Jerusalem.